Hey, welcome back. And today I want to talk to you about ministry finances, money, money, money. Um, Not that money is the thing, right? Money is not the root of all evil. The love of money is the root of all evil. You can be poor and love money. You can be rich and not love money. It's the love of money. Church finances. That's really where we're going. But I have what is it? Oh yeah, so you pray for some money and somebody gives you a basket full of it. Now there you go. How about that, right? Um, Jesus said, "Given it shall be given to you, good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, to be poured into your lap. For the measure you use, it will be measured back to you." And I think that this is really important. Generosity is such an important aspect of the Christian life, and so like generosity coming to the church, we need to motivate our people to be good, generous stewards of God's money. But also, we need to be, like in the church, we need to be generous in the way we give away, give of ourselves, our time, our energy, and our resources to help others. So, really, when we think about stewardship, we think about money and the offering plate, and it's a pretty significant thing, right? What did Jesus say about money? He said more about money than he did heaven and hell combined. Somebody asked Dawson Trotman, the founder of Navigators, how much ministry can be done with $100? And he said, well, about $100 worth. So yeah, it actually does take resources to make it go. Now, God can work with nothing, and he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. But sometimes what we need to do is butcher a few of those cows and get them to the coffers so we can get things going, right? So I want to look at just a few aspects of giving, both in the giving side of things for churches, and then also like what is the church uh, procedure for budgeting. Uh, 38% of churches, this was about a year ago from when I'm doing this video in 26, all right, March 26th. I'm doing this. Almost 40% of churches outspent their contributions, and a third have no savings. And that's one of the major reasons why churches go under. They don't have enough resources to make it go, and they can't maintain the building. They just can't do the stuff. And I presided over the funeral of a couple of churches over the last couple of years. It's kind of sad, but it takes stewardship. Stewardship means that you don't own the stuff. It's not your money. It's their money. I mean, not money, his money. It's not their money. It's his money. Everything. Stewardship should just not just be about money. It's about our energy. It's about our other resources. Our time, our talents, and our treasure. That's stewardship. Now, there are four types of givers that will be in your church. There are tippers, and they'll give, like if there's a special project or something, we need to raise money for a window or something like that, or the air conditioner at the church. They'll give you maybe $50 for this or that, but they're not really like, they're not a part of it. You can't depend on them. They just kind of tip, or they're sporadic. They just kind of bop in and out. You have givers. And these are your regular donors to the church. They might be giving you like $75 every time the offering goes through or whatever. Um, you have investors, and these are people that really believe in what you're doing. And so they're a part of things, and they're supporting you financially with that. And then you have stewards, and stewards are just generous with their whole life. And so, like, it's just their giving is just a part of their stewardship. And so, there's a big difference between a tipper and a steward. 27% of active um, evangelical church members say they tithe. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they really do. They just say that they do. So that means that just about three-fourths of active evangelical church members don't tithe at all. So well, that's quite a bit, right? What do you got that? 73% don't. That tithing means giving 10% of your income. And when it says tithe, that doesn't mean necessarily tied to one specific thing. I mean, talk about tithe in the overall big picture of things, that they give 10% of their money to God somehow, some way. Only 33% of pastors see that tithing is a biblical standard. That's what Barna came up with a few years ago. And maybe that's one of the reasons why only 27% of members tithe. If the pastors don't believe that it's a standard of any sort. The question is it a standard? Well, we go back to Abraham, who gave a tithe to Melchizedek, who was sort of a forerunner of Christ. I would think that he was actually a theophany. He was actually a Christophany. Jesus shows up in physical form, and he gives him a tithe out of his heart, just thanking God for the victory that he had won. In Leviticus, it becomes a command, right? Give a tithe of everything that you have. It belongs to the Lord. It's holy unto the Lord. In the book of Malachi, this is the one the preachers use a lot. Test me in this. Bring your whole tithe to the storehouse and see if there'll be room in my house. I'm just going to throw open the floodgates of heaven so much you won't have room for it. And I've actually practiced that. Kathy and I, from the very early days of our life, all throughout our entire married life, we've tithed, and it's been a blessing for us. We have just always received more than we give. We do better on 90% than we ever could with 100 because God blesses it. Now, the tithing becomes like a tax in the New Testament times. The temple becomes a tax. Like in England, the church is supported by taxes, and that's the way it was in Jerusalem. And Jesus had to pay the temple tax, so they had to go fishing for that. So that's kind of an interesting thing. There's a rich young ruler that talks about, what must I do? And Jesus says, go sell everything. All of a sudden, whoop, that's not a tithe, that's everything. And he's like, oh, and he runs away, right? As he goes away sorrowfully. He doesn't want to do that. See, Jesus demands everything. He wants more than just a tenth. We don't just sing, I surrender 1/10. I surrender 1/10. No, we surrender all. All to Jesus I surrender. All to him I freely give. We see this though in the book of Acts. They actually gave up everything. Nobody claimed their possessions were their own, but they gave as there was need. And if we hold on loosely to our stuff, we will be much more generous. That we don't feel like we that our stuff is our stuff, my precious. But I can give it freely for others, right? Ananias and Sapphira pretend like they're giving it freely for others. They actually lie about the whole thing. They act super generous and they both get zapped, crispy critters for that. So God takes that kind of stuff seriously, right? In Second Corinthians, it says that we should give as we've determined in our hearts to give, not grudgingly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. Now, I think he loves grumpy givers too, but I think that he really loves it when we give cheerfully. But the way to do that is what we've determined in our heart to give. And that's different than a rule or like a law or something like that. If you're preaching on tithing, don't make it legalistic. Don't make it like that. Make it relational. So like when I give Kathy a gift for her birthday, I don't say, oh, it's her birthday. I gotta give her a birthday gift here. We don't do it like that. I say, it's your birthday. I give this because I love you, right? And it isn't like she doesn't say, how much did you spend on this gift? Was it good? No, it wasn't it. It's about the heart. It's what's in the heart that counts. So with Melchizedek, it's about faith. Abraham gives by faith. Moses is about a law. With the Messiah, it goes back to faith, but it accomplishes what the Mosaic tithe is supposed to do. And we just see generosity all over the place in the New Testament. So yeah, it's tithing by faith, tithing by law, tithing by faith again. And I think that this is the key to help them understand the relational dynamic of this, that we give to what's most important to us, that we give to what we love. We always do that. And if 10% is the benchmark of generosity, and so we want to be generous people, so that's what we ought to do. 37% of people who attend church on any given Sunday give no money to the church at all during a whole year. They give nothing. They just pass that plate right on by and they let other people do the heavy hefting. It takes about 20% of your people give 80% of your finances. That's the 20-80 principle. The Pareto principle is what that's called. 20% of the people do 80% of the work. 20% of the people cause 80% of your problems. 20% of your people give 80% of your finances. It's interesting that this is just the latest data I found. that only 6% give every week, about 18% give every month, 76% give either annually or intermittently. January is the least most popular month to tithe, probably because everybody gave a lot at Christmas time. December is the biggest, right? We find there's a bump in March. Usually that has to do with Easter and the fact that March might have 5 Sundays in it. February is always a low month for us. You got to find out your patterns for your church. There are certain giving patterns that are different. So like different months are different. And so you just know that. And so when you're building in your budget, now for us, we just did a 12-month straight across the top, but we always interpreted it in light of where we are. Okay, are we in December? It better be a good month if it's December, right? January is probably not so great. That's okay. We won't catastrophize if we have a bad January and February because March is coming and we know that'll be good. A lot of times in the summer it goes down, but then in the fall it goes back up. So if you just know that those patterns, then you won't panic when it goes down, and you'll be able to plan further ahead. If you are further ahead or behind in your budget, you can adjust accordingly. Interestingly, people who do tithe, 8 out of 10 have zero credit card debt. That's a good indicator for tithing, right? It's a good advertisement for tithing. Yeah, Kathy and I, we always pay our credit cards off at the end of every month, and we tithe. And I think that kind of we're a part of that, right? Um, 60% prefer to donate digitally. That's the latest I found. I think it's probably bigger than that now. Everything changed with COVID. I mean, it has just really changed the whole game with tithing, right? Like, and if if you don't have an emphasis on digital giving in your church, you need to do that because that's the place, particularly if it's recurring, right? 50% give digitally. Notice over here, 60% prefer to give digitally, 50% give digitally. And the reason for that is there are people that prefer to give digitally, but they haven't really set it up yet. They want to. Um, More than half prefer to give online with a credit card, right? So that's a possible way to do it. 10% actually accept cryptocurrency. That's an interesting thought. I have never done that, but that's something you could consider. So 29% give by credit card and 71% give by bank account, by a direct deposit. Now, once again, if you go back, 54% would prefer to give with a credit card, but only 29% give with a credit card. But the reason for that is because the churches don't have that set up. And there could be some issues with that. You want to really think through your philosophy and your theology of that, whether that would be a good thing for you to accept credit cards. Credit check on aisle two as the ushers are passing the plates, right? Okay, so as far as recurring giving, okay, only about 15% of givers are recurring givers. They have it set up digitally to just recur to give. But if you look at it, over a third of all the total giving comes from those people. So I really encourage you to really do more, emphasize more recurring giving because it will increase your giving in your church. The average donation, this is in 2025 across the nation, is 29.63 per capita. That's every head that's in the worship service divided by the offering, and that's your per capita, right? Um, it's the average gift is 29.63. For the Wesleyan Church, it was $34.56. So a little bit more than the other all denominations altogether. What is your per capita? It would be interesting to take a look at your attendance last Sunday, and then look at the total offering last Sunday. Now we included everybody in our per capita. I'm talking about kids and everything. Everybody that was there. And then you just did that and see what you got. Another way you could do it is by giving unit. And when you give a giving unit, that would just be a family unit that gives. There'd be a three, four, six, two, one person. It all your per capita will go up then if you do the give it by giving unit. The average donation size to a church is $205, right? $205. You have quite a few that give under 100, almost half give under 100 bucks, and and a few, 3% almost, 2.79 give over 1,000 bucks. There's our weekly, monthly, intermittently donation frequency. Um, so this is the giving frequency compared to the total giving volume, right? So those who give weekly, oh, there's only 5.25% give 30%, right? Those who give monthly, 12, they give 48%. Those who just give intermittently, there's a lot of these guys. The majority of givers are here, but they give the least amount. There's your 80/20 thing, right? There you go. So, just some ideas as far as stewardship goes. Like if you're doing themes of stewardship, um, putting that in. You don't want to focus on that. Don't be a money grubber. Uh, but it's important to teach because that's a part of discipleship. So in January, maybe teach on generosity. I always had a stewardship series in January. In April and May, emphasize automated giving, recurring giving. In the summer, focus on relationships and then maybe even like raising money for kids for camp and stuff like that. In the fall, do like a special project, a funding initiative, maybe missions or something like that. And then in December, you can emphasize year-end giving. Our best offering was always at the end. It was the Sunday before Christmas, and we called it the March to the Manger. And we had everybody wrap up a gift to Jesus, whatever the gift is. It could be a commitment that they would make, a promise they wanted to do, something that they wanted to stop. Like sometimes people wrapped up packages of cigarettes or a bottle of whiskey or a lottery tickets or they would give uh, items for the food shelf, community food shelf, or they would write a letter to Jesus or anything. It could just be anything. A picture of their girlfriend that broke up with them. I'm going to give that up. But then they also gave their money, and we always brought in for that offering more than like the entire month before, just in one Sunday. It was just the biggest day of the year, March to the Manger. So we would actually do a pageant with that too. We'd have shepherds and wise men and angels and Joseph and Mary, and we say, "Now it's your turn. You get to come to and you come and we sing, 'Oh, come all you faithful,' as we all bring our gifts to Jesus." Sweet, sweet, sweet. I highly recommend it. Okay, so the average of your tithe, the tithing and the donations of your church will be determined largely by your context, your demographics, your stability of your membership, the longevity of your membership, and your discipleship processes. So if you're in a poor, like inner urban kind of thing, you're not going to be able to do quite so much. Like some of our Hispanic churches, for instance, they really struggle because they don't have any money and they give the best they can, but it's just really tough and they're just squeaking by. So it's going to be a little bit different for them than some like upper, like class kind of group. I preach at a church in a gated community about once every 4 months, and those guys they just have so much, and it's completely different context. No, and that has to do with the age demographic, or the young, or the old. Now membership stability is if it's a time of quick growth for your church, then the giving lags about 2 years behind, right? And or if there's a huge decline, you got to deal with that, right? The membership. And how long have the people been members? Usually, the longer people have been members of the church, the average donation is higher. Um, and churches that teach stewardship in their discipleship process, they have more and stronger finances than those that don't. Uh, Bob Tilton is a TV evangelist uh, who raises money in his own kind of way. I do not recommend it, but if you want to be appalled, just Google Bob Tilton money from YouTube videos. I'm not going to bother with that. There's three kinds of giving that you want to look at. It's like a three-legged stool. We have the general fund, we have designated funds and restricted funds. Designated funds are restricted funds, or sometimes it can be designated by the donor, or sometimes it can be restricted by like the board. So like The general fund would be whatever you use for your regular budget. Okay, so that's just what you're going to do. We're gonna do this, right? This is and our general fund, like any of the offerings come in, they go for our general fund. Designated funds are money that people give, like say for the youth group, or this goes to youth camp, or this is going to help pay for the debt for our building, or for our building fund, or to pave the parking lot, or this is a benevolence gift to help somebody in need. Now, if you receive the designated fund as a designated fund, you have to use it for that designation unless the person lifts the designation. If you don't do that, that's illegal. It's called a misappropriation of funds, and you can go to jail for that. So don't do that, right? Um, don't undesignate designated funds. Now, restricted funds are funds that maybe we say we're going to take 10% of our offering and give it to missions. So we're going to restrict 10% of this and we're going to give it to foreign missions across overseas. Now, since the board determined that, the board could unrestrict it. That would be no problem. And they could go back and they could do it. They could change it because it wasn't by the donor. The donor gave it as a general fund. The board restricts it, right? So that's the difference between, say, a designated by the donor and a restricted. Now, one thing about designated funds, by the way, if it's a benevolence gift, a person cannot give a benevolence gift that is self-serving. So they're not allowed to actually dictate who that gift goes to. They can't like give you a benevolence gift, say, I want to give this to help my son to buy a new car. I want to give this money so I get a tax write-off and my son gets a new car. You can't do that. However, if let's say that you see it, that somebody in your church sees a need and their heart is broken because of this need. There's a family that needs help, and they say, "I'd like to help this family, and I'd like to give this gift." Now, once they give the gift, we got to understand, they're giving a gift to the benevolence fund, and then we, as the church, can determine whether or not we use it for that particular purpose. So, like, well, we have to use it for benevolence, but we don't have to. The donor can't direct it to any specific person. Now, they can recommend, and always we tried to honor that recommendation. But that's a safeguard just in case somebody's trying to play with the system and monkey around with that and try to do something self-serving by using church coffers to do it. So just be careful about that and be really, really cautious about the use of designated funds. Don't spend designated and restricted funds unless that has been undesignated or unrestricted. Now, people have different reasons why they give. Different kinds of people operate for different reasons. Now, we should all be giving out of our great love for Jesus, and that is the bottom line. But yet, there are other things that tend to motivate us as well. And so, like, since that's the case, when you're talking about money from church, it might be good to address these in different kinds of ways. So like obedience to God. I give out of obedience. I give because the Bible said so and I'm going to do it. I give out of vision. I give because I'm inspired by what I see and I love this and I want to support this. I give to need, like I see a need, I see a real terrible need, and I want to help meet that need. I give to relationship, right? So I love you. I really love your heart, and I just really want you to know I'm with you. Relationship, and I give because I'm a part of things. I'm involved, and I want to show that I'm involved. All five of these are legitimate reasons why people might give. And so I would suggest that don't just beat the obedience drum every time, but let's say when it comes time for the offering, we talk about some of the inspiring things that are coming up. That's a vision thing. Or you can talk about a need that's out there that needs to be met. And with your giving, you can meet this need. Or with your giving, you met this need and you met this need. And we're so thankful for that. Thank you for doing that. Relationship, this is where you raise money for kids to go to youth camp, right? That's why people buy Girl Scout cookies, right? Besides the taste of the cookies, right? But it's the relationship with the Girl Scout. That's why they buy the cookies and involvement. Like you guys are a part of something here, and we're doing this together. And I know that we're all going to do. So, like if you can just highlight these different aspects of giving, these different motivations, it touches on each individual's heart in a different kind of way. Usually it's a blend of these for us. Like for me, I love God and I do it obediently, but I love the vision and I love the need and I love the relationship. So, and I'll give to like missions because of relationship, but not just relationship. I'll give because of vision more than need. So, like, even then in our mission giving that we did at our church, we looked at these things and said, what is our church about for our mission and our vision for the world? And then which mission gifts align to that, to our obedience to the mission and the vision that God has given to us. So we allocated, people gave us money for missions, and then we allocated that out kind of like a mutual fund, if you will, for missions to really multiply disciples in effective kinds of ways. A lot of times, though, people give to a missionary just because they have a relationship with that missionary and they want to support because they're their friends. So, again, that's just the motivation for giving. There's a three-legged stool for giving, and all three of these can really come into to help for you and a blessing. Now, usually we just think of number one, stool number one. That's the regular gifts. This is your normal giving that you get week after week after week at the church as it comes in. By the way, we don't say the ushers will take the offering. We say the ushers will receive the offering because it's giving as an act of worship. Um, and now one issue about that, by the way, is if you're sitting in church and you take an offering, they receive an offering in the church service. Um, my church does something really great. I love it. There's a little card there that says I gave online. And that's really great for me because I'm an online recurring giver, and I love to have something that I can put in the offering plate as my expression of my worship right there, tangible in the worship service. I highly recommend that practice. Anyway, regular giving is one aspect, and that's your main one. Special gifts is another, and this could be major gifts. Like you could. This is where the big gifts came in, like the $10,000 and a $15,000, $20,000 gift. Like there would be like a rich person that will do that for you, or a special gift or a special offering or something like that that you're going to do in a regular, just a one-time kind of shot kind of deal. So you want to look at that and cultivate those gifts because there are people that they have the gift of giving, and the Apostle Paul says, "Excel in the gift of giving," and some have that gift. And if you do not nurture that with them, then they're not living up to what God wants them to do. And so this is their way of being a part of the mission, and you can bring great joy to their hearts by being a part of that with them. The last is wills and bequests. This is when somebody dies and they will money to the church and or your ministry. And this is a long-term one. Um, and but that is also a way to do it. And so like there's a thing through I think it's Wesleyan Investment Foundation where people can actually make their wills. They can do it for free. And there's a place on there that said, "Would you like to remember your church when you pass away?" And people do. They do. And then when they pass away, a little portion, maybe 10% or something like that, is like a tithe of the will of the estate to the church, just as their way of saying thank you to God for what God has done for them. So that's just another possibility. If you're building a tower, Jesus says you got to sit down and count the cost, whether you have enough to complete it. So you want a plan, and that means you need to budget. You need to budget. A budget is a plan to spend your money. Your financial report is how that money was spent, right? So a budget is a future thing, and a financial statement is a past tense thing. You want to measure those two together. And remember, your financial statements are going to flex and flow depending on the month. But keep a close eye on that. Don't let that get away from you. Take a look and make sure that it's all straight and steady and good. And if your out goes exceeding your income, your upkeep will be your downfall. So you want to make sure you stay in the black for the most part. All right. Um, there are some different ways to budget. Like this is one way, to give half of it to compensation. They usually say about 50%. That all depends. It all depends on your programs, your debt service. I mean, all those kind of things. If you don't have debt, you could do a little bit more for compensation. Um, You want to give money away, like say for like United Stewardship Fund, which was a Wesleyan thing. There might be some building expenses. You don't want to go more than 15% for building expenses and stuff. Um, so this is just one way to do it. There's lots of different ways. There's another possibility. Um, 35, 35, 20, and 10. You can do straight across the board, 33 and a half, 33 and a half, 33 and a half. I don't recommend number three. What I do recommend though, and I'm going to show my share, is doing this is budgeting by your mission and your strategy. So, like in another video, I'm going to talk about the purposes of a church or the strategies like worship, discipleship, evangelism, fellowship. Um, so you have these areas, and you can budget in those areas, each one of those areas. And then you can even look at the pastor's time and say what part of the pastor's time has been in evangelism. I'm going to put and planning worship services and stuff. And you can actually divide out the salary amongst those kind of things. So that's another way to do it when you're actually doing a budget. If you do like a narrative budget, that this is what you tell the people, like as you put it out there before the people, this is what we're going to accomplish. This is our statement of faith. The question is, should you budget realistically or should you budget with like in faith, right? Like that's a stretch, right? And I always budgeted conservatively. Like basically I looked at what we were last year. What's our trajectory of where we're going? If things continued on, we could then I would just do kind of about that would be our realistic budget. But then we had another budget that we called the faith budget. And the faith budget was, you know what? If God really comes through in a beautiful way, more than what we have here, but He gives us an increase of that, then this is what we want to do, right? This is what we want to accomplish. And a lot of times that's what happened. We'd hit this budget rather than this one. But if we didn't hit this one, then we weren't into trouble because we committed ourselves up to the eyeballs and then we're stuck when things go down. You don't want to have to lay people off or cut people's salaries or those kind of things. We don't you want to make sure you're paying your electric bill. So you budget wisely, but with faith. Well, I hope that was helpful for you. Uh, take the wheat and get rid of the chaff, and hopefully this will help you as you do your budgeting processes.